Hey there, I'm Parker X. I led technology and product for a startup that did well over $50 million a year in sales. We were there the whole time, helped scale it. After that, I did a bunch of different startup ideas in the SaaS space, tried to go the VC route. It didn't work out. The execution was good, the tech was good, but the market risk was too high for what I was trying to build. But I've been using AI to build things pretty much every single day since it's been popularized, since the SDK came out. And so on this channel, I do daily uploads where I teach what I'm doing to build an AI services business in public. We go through some news, we go through some build stuff, some strategy. Let's jump into it. First thing is vibe coding can break a lot of different things. And so I'm figuring out the best practices for how to avoid that. We're making a lot of content on that on a new channel called Parker Rex Explains. So let's get into the whiteboard. One of the questions that came in is on the different tool calls that Cursor has. So I want to just cover that real quick. A tool call is something that an AI uses to basically have a function, a very well defined function that it can call, because you don't want it to just have all sorts of freedom if you want it to do a specific thing. So, an example of this in Cursor is it has a read file tool, which reads the contents of a specified file, has a write tool, which does what it sounds like. It can write, it can delete, so the CRUD operators. Then there's code modification tools like editing, doing parallel applies, so similar edits across multiple files simultaneously. A code-based search, so that's when it's doing a grep and it's looking around. I guess these are separate. You have grep search and code-based search. You have file search, web search, run command, which does terminal stuff, and then reapply. So some of those are the tools, and you can define these in your own code bases. So an example of that would be with Perplexity. They have a research tool. They have a bunch of different tools that make you get that experience when you type in a query and it comes back. So that was one of the questions that I saw that I wanted to answer. Next up is LG, a company that typically makes televisions, launched a model. Kind of wild to think about, but it's going to be a trend. Like, there's going to be people that just make more and more and more models. It's kind of crazy, but it's worth talking about because they achieved number one on AIME, which I don't even know what that is. So let's look it up. AIME, AI benchmark. Highest performing benchmarks. So this just looks like it's the mathematics examination. So it's really good at math, or sort of good at math. O3 Mini being the best. Grok not on here. Interesting. Grok 3 at least. But I don't know too much about it. I just wanted to call that out because I think it's kind of crazy that people like LG putting stuff out. I don't know if there's any examples of people using it. Ooh, that's interesting. So it outperformed a bunch of different models with just 1/20th of the model size. So these things are getting smarter, they're getting smaller, which plays into something that Apple might be doing long term. A lot of people are giving Apple crap, but at the end of the day, if you look at Apple, they have this massive ecosystem that they've built. So you have obviously the iPhone, and you have the MacBook, you have AirPods, you have the watch. Obviously other things in there, but those are the main ones. And then each one of those has access to a couple of proprietary features that no one else has. So AirDrop, one of them, really easy file exchange. You have the Bluetooth connectivity. If you're in the ecosystem, you know that it's just better, the handoff process between devices and the connection. You have iMessage. You have Photos. Then you have iCloud. So all of these are kind of under this umbrella. This whole thing basically, is under the umbrella of the Apple ecosystem, the walled garden, so to speak. and it's really hard to get out of. So a lot of people are saying, like, where's Apple when it comes to AI? Because they did a partnership with OpenAI, which I don't know how well it's going, but I've used it on the iPhone, and it's kind of like you have to dig through a couple different folders to even find it or settings. But what I think they're doing is really smart in a way because the amount of capital that has gone into the foundational layer. So in AI, you have the foundational layer, which is the models and the actual like metal things that are powering everything, like the big databases or data centers, and the companies like NVIDIA really benefit from this because they sell all the stuff that everybody has to have in order to run their models and build companies. You have the app layer, which would be the actual things that people are using. So like chat.com, which is ChatGPT, or the Grok app. And then the third is dev tools. You have these three different segments. And the most expensive one, and by far most expensive one, is this one right here. So this one is really, really capital intensive. Like, for example, there was a project, Star something, Starbase. Now there's a project that $500 billion is being put to work to build out AI infrastructure. And that would be just one of hundreds of investments. So trillions of dollars are going into this one right here. And then what's happening is in any new kind of paradigm shift. So like when YouTube came online, we spent a whole lot of money to be able to support videos streaming. But then it got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper with getting faster and faster internet speeds. So more people could upload, but a lot of money went up front. So I think the way that you could kind of chart this is like if it's money, investment, and then time, there's a big balloon up front, the cost. And then what is kind of interesting is if we had like, let's call it like uh, enterprise value. So the companies that are putting the investments in, they're also ballooning. But then as the price and the cost of the compute comes down, so in this case, like GPU and inference and all that stuff, as that comes down, so does the enterprise value, typically, unless they pivot, unless they land and expand, because things get commoditized. So, for instance, like early on, chat.com or ChatGPT was the only player in the room. So they've commanded, $90 billion enterprise value or market cap. But it's kind of in question, like, are they really a foundational company? Because that's what they've been. Or are they becoming more of an app layer company? And I think they're more of an app layer company over time. That's will keep their enterprise value high because companies like Microsoft, who own 51% of ChatGPT or OpenAI, are now kind of ridiculing the space, saying these things need to make money because they're not making money. So, what Apple's doing by not getting into this space is they're actually avoiding a lot of this. They're avoiding this like big area of loss. They're letting other people, other entrants, and other money go into the space to advance it, and then they'll come in. And you'll see this as they did the same thing with the MP3 player. So if you have like Zune was Microsoft's, I think, versus the iPod. You also saw this with BlackBerry versus iPhone. You also saw this with Bose versus AirPod Max. But then they come in and they just wreck it. Obviously, wireless headphones, you can't name one set besides AirPods. And their business for AirPods alone is massive, like $100 billion. So I think that what they're doing is actually really smart. And it plays into this thing like LG dumping a lot of capital into it. They're just helping Apple in the end because they're showing what the best practices are. And at the end of the day, to bring it all home, what they own is the iPhone, which is what everybody's on in the US. A lot of people are on globally. And the chips that are in them, they have like M4 that runs on a Mac, but those will be able to eventually run these. So you'll end up just connecting model directly to the phone. And they're very privacy centric, privacy focused. So the next up is Claude Max. So Claude Max is something that Cursor released. And what it does, we'll just read the docs. So it has Claude 3.7 thinking at its core. It uses the entire context window with a very high tool call limit. So traditionally, if you're using Cursor, you'll hit a tool call limit. It's not good. You have to hit resume, but whatever. But they're basically just maxing this thing out. It's kind of controversial. A lot of people are saying like, well, you dumbed it down. And then the guy's like, no, it doesn't. I just wanted to call it out because it is in Cursor and it's a new thing. So we wanted to take a look at it. So we're actually going to use it now. We're going to skip around a little bit because I have something that's broken on the website that I need to get fixed with some level of urgency. Because if Google hits that and there's broken links, it will derank me in search. Luckily, I pushed this stuff at like 2 a.m. last night, so it's fine. So what I'm going to do is introduce another new system that's called the memory bank. And this is put out by Klein. Klein, if you haven't heard of it, they are the innovators in the space of AI agents. They invented the first pattern of the AI agent that recursively answers itself in an IDE. And what it does is really special. So this memory bank has a couple different files in it. Active context is the thing that when you're starting a new task, because Klein is task centric, it will go and read this. Product context is context about the product. Progress is what we did last. Project brief is what we're going to type in. So we're going to put this. We recently updated our routes for the blog. And now when I click on individual blog posts in the blog page, it goes to broken links. We need to fix this so that all the blog individual posts work. So I put in something here, more detail the better. So what I can do is I want to just do a little bit of investigation because the difference between an 80% prompt, like, it's going to work most of the time, right? Like 4 out of 5 times it's going to work. The difference between that and then 5 out of 5 times is knowing how to do the task that you're getting it to do. So what I would do is I'd actually do a little bit of investigation. So I'd pull up the file and I know that this page is leading to something that's broken. So files involved, it already knew. That's great. So let's take a look and see if we can't find a link tag in here. Link. These are for the search queries. Let's make sure that works. So let's open up this. Let's go to our blog. We're going to type in prompt. Hit enter. And I'm not sure even how this is working. So that's an issue. So in the search, I'd want it to show highlights of the words that I've typed in. There's another issue here. So we have like a dual clear button. So let's type in issues for project brief. Current bugs to fix. Cool. Number 1, or I'll do context. We recently did this. Okay. We also added search functionality. But it's not working as expected. Okay. Great. So on this bug number one would be clicking on individual blog posts on the blog page, go to broken links. So let's click on one, goes to this. Something is happening in here after we added search, where if I did a search, it's adding this. So let's see if we're going to put this in. Current behavior. The, what is it? Search bar reads that. Expected behavior. Should just be this thing. Let's look at the slug. So we'll actually go into the database, check what the slug should be. Posts and slug. Copy that and let's test it out. That's wrong too. Interesting. It seems to be fixing things. Is that the slug? It is the slug. Okay. So even that's busted. I didn't expect that part. So the slug stored on the database is that. This may be an issue with our trigger in the database. So I had a function that made, or sorry, I had a trigger that made slugs. So what we can do is we can bring that in. And the reason I had that was because I was seeding the platform. And frankly, I just was trying to vibe code part of it and I didn't read it. So that's a mistake you don't want to do. So let's look for slug. Generate blog post slug. Cool. Let's grab anything that has slug in it. Create new function, update post status. There's quite a few things in here. 18 results. Let's just tag. You can see the trigger here. Tag the schema. And then we also want to, here's a snippet of the trigger. We'll grab it. So let's go to the first instance. Cool. And I don't even think I'd need this. I think this is likely causing more harm than help. So put that in there. Put the tags around it. Okay. Great. And then that's another file. Are there any other files involved? With blog page. Let's close these. Blog slug. Okay. That all seems good. Cool. So we have everything in there. Now what we'll do is we're going to grab Incline. I'm not going to use it because I ran out of tokens, but I'm going to use the same pattern with cursor. So it has this big custom instruction that explains what the memory bank is, the structure of it, all the like flow charts explaining it. You can find this in the links in the description. Actually, it'll be on the blog post once this blog is working. And I'll go over here and I'm going to say, read your user instructions. Because what I did was I put them in here and user rules. And I won't tag any files. And then I'll hit. Let's try this max thing. Let's try max. Okay, never mind. We're not going to use that because I don't have it set up. Let's try this. We're going to tag it because it couldn't figure it out. Okay, so now it's going through. And I'm wondering why it didn't pick that up, but that's okay. So it's reading through everything. It's getting everything loaded into memory. And it should be able to knock this task out. Okay, so it found the issue. That slug was doing the problem. That was causing the problem. Because the ones that were seeded had that applied, but not the ones that have been created after. Because I was just inlining them, like in the GUI. So this should handle the slug from the URL. And then we need to update the generate metadata. And then we need to update this. What generate static params does is when you go to build your project, it will make sure all those routes are there ahead of time. And so they're static. And that matters because Google will have more pages to read from the get-go. They'll be a part of the site tree. Versus if you didn't have it, then it would not work. You wouldn't have access to those. Okay. So now we want, it looks like we made a change to our SQL by making a new update. So it'll fix all the records. That makes sense. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll just run this on GUI. Oh, I need to get orb stack running. Second. So let's start the server or the database. So that's running. Okay, it needs to apply it. So that good, that did apply it to our database. created a temporary function, it executed it, and then it dropped it. That's cool. So now it should be running and it should have fixed those URLs locally. So we'll run it locally. And let's click on blog. Let's click on an article. And ta-da, it works. Great. So what we'll do now in order to fix this is we will do a commit, which will push the migration up. Now we're going to do Supabase DB push. We like what happened. We're going to push both. Actually, we don't need the initial schema because it's already up. So we don't have a migration history in here because it was messed up, and I like having clean working stuff that's not confusing. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually rename, let's cancel that, and name this schema.sql. We're going to move it out of the migrations because that'll be the base. And then we're just going to push that one that we have. Yes. Cool. So what that should do is hopefully fix them. Let's see. Might have to do this manually. Create and call it. Let's do it. Let's grab this and let's run it. Okay. Then let's check our database. Go to tables, or sorry, table editor, posts. Much better, I think. Let's see. Now let's push these changes. And that's going to take a second to build. So we can come back to that in a sec. We'll just pull up Vercel and pull up the deployment. It should take about, I'm assuming like, a minute and a half. So we'll come back in 1 minute. Cool. That's from yesterday. Next up. Okay. These N8N automations are things that I'm going to be selling into businesses because they're super helpful, but I want to do it in a scalable way. I want to do it in a way that I can learn the fastest rather. But I can learn the fastest on the breadth of what's possible with them. So what I found was there's a bunch of open source ones. So if I look in here, if you're familiar with what one looks like I'll just pull up a YouTube video. And I think it was, let's go to our history. Let's find one. Okay, this guy built Jarvis.
Custom account.
This guy built an assistant
sure
that does a whole bunch of stuff.
Look alive.
It basically like has a Telegram trigger, and then it can talk to you. It can update contacts and do like pull things from Hacker News. It can do calculator tests. It does a bunch of random things. This is not a business use case, but this stuff on screen here is basically just a JSON file. So luckily a bunch of people have open sourced these, so I can find all of them. And I want to be able to have all of these on a server so that I can have them for myself and do the self-hosted way. But then also so I can know which ones are good, which ones are bad. So this is a great resource, right? Like what? There's how many folders in here? Let's call it like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 25 in here, 25, 30. A lot of different use cases. There's another one in here. It's like advanced web researcher. And all of these, again, they end up looking like that one we just looked at. So if we had 30 in there, we have another 40 in here. There's 70 different automations that you can select from. You probably end up selling these, not even to businesses, but I see people doing this all the time as like, I guess you could use them as lead magnets. But that's the plan is I'm going to start picking these off and hosting them. See our build completed. So you can see that we have this SSG. So that's static site generated, which meant that our generate static params worked. And that's what I was speaking about earlier, where all these paths are completed. Like they're already built ahead of time at build so that Google can go and index them. So let's see if our method worked. Let's grab our normal site, the live one. Let's go to blog. Let's click on one. All fixed. So that worked great. Let's test another one just to be sure. And we'd want to actually wrap tests around these, but great. We fixed our issue. So that was teaching you guys how to use the memory bank method within Cursor. And that is awesome. So I'm really happy with that. And I needed to get that done anyways. You guys learned something there. But back to this N8N thing. So my plan with it is to basically have, it won't be a $5 VPS because what I noticed is there's this meme where people taught, it's called the $5 VPS, which is a virtual private server. And what it means is that there's some computer that's sitting in New York and you just get a little piece of one of those computers. Problem with that is if you run one Next.js app on it, it will spike the CPU to the point that it can't even build on it. And you can get around that by building off of it and then uploading it. But I just want a beefier machine. So what I'll do is there's a company called Hetzner, and they have really cheap compute. And that'll allow me to run all my tools on it. So it's a beefier machine. I can run parkerx.com on it. I can run mapthemap.com on it, which is just a marketing site, but also then the app itself. I can run all the N8N workflows on it. And then I can run any sort of miscellaneous cron tasks on it, which is really cool. So cron is just basically something that's built into Unix and built into Linux, the operating system level, where it has a syntax where it's like timestamps and asterisks. So I can say like at 12 o'clock, go do this task. And then you can have it be associated with AI. And having it run on a server is really nice because you can't really do it on Vercel. Vercel's got what's called on-demand compute. And so each time that you want to do something, it's basically got to like spin something up. And that's what leads to these things called cold starts that everyone complains about. And it's built on this tech called Lambdas, which is from Amazon. So I think this is a good plan. I think other people should be doing this too, because I was just scooching around on the internet last night. I'm like, holy crap, all these are available on GitHub. It's just the best. One other thing is I'm going to be having this satellite channel for all the Cursor news because there's just so much of it. So you should check that out. And then lastly, before we wrap up, I just want to update on the content pipeline. So if you've watched my videos before, I've been talking a lot about how do you get the most leverage out of AI and how do you put the most amount of content out in a world where things are going to be valued for their authenticity because it's AI, there's going to be so much crap. So the system that I was thinking about is like, okay, well, how do you get more surface area across all these different platforms with just one person? And so I made this long list of all the steps that would be involved for taking one piece of content, which is this, and then turning it into every platform. And so I made some progress on this yesterday until I hit a ceiling with the account type that I have. But why do I have to log in again? Okay. So you can see I already have exceeded the data transfer by 2.8x because I tried to do one video. Obviously, you need to change that. But I started with this YouTube to blog post, which I can turn off. What it did was was watching for a file in a folder. So when I make this video, I'll save it to G Drive, and then the G Drive downloads it. This is where it broke and then it goes over to transcription. So it's going to transcribe all the words. After that, it will write a blog. The blog prompt is very specific. So it takes conversational transcription and makes a comprehensive tutorial blog. And this is using best practices from HubSpot. They're really good at inbound marketing. That's what content is at the end of the day. It's inbound marketing. So it has all these things in it. It pluses it up, and then it's going to store that in a variable. Then we're going to have an excerpt writer, because if you look at Supabase or anywhere that you're storing your information, most posts have an excerpt. So if I look at my site, I go to /blog, that's what this excerpt is. And you can even see I'm missing an I here. So it would write this, and then it's actually going to write a title as well. So it's going to write a title, and it has a specific prompt. And then it goes to Markdown, to HTML as the next module. And then finally it creates the row. So this is something I did manually for the last 2 weeks. And it's just another 15 minutes. But if I take 1 hour to automate it, then by the 5th time that I've done it manually, I'm in the green. So that's one part of the content pipeline that I finished. And then the next one I was working on is YouTube long to short. So right now, there's only 2 steps in it. And they're going to be watching for a post that's already been processed from an audio perspective. Because I use in a different automation, when I post a video, it's going to a third party called Aphonic. Aphonic does 2 things. One is it creates a transcription as well, which is then used to generate the chapter markers, which are the things that let you navigate the video. And then it creates a summary, both short and long. Then it creates tags, and then obviously creates a separate audio and video file. And so it's doing that, and then it's going to store it somewhere else, which will be the process folder. And then I want to take that and then do an HTTP call that will go to an app called Descript. We'll go to an app called Descript, and Descript does clipping. So it will take the video that I send it and then make short clips for it. And then I don't have to hire an editor for that. So that will be something that we continue to do. And this brings up to what I was talking about earlier about self-hosting. Is I don't mind doing the DevOps. I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of doing, but I've done it before, and it's better to know how to do it than running into these walls. So the last one that I'm working on for the pipeline is this Instagram theme page. So what it does is I'll show you a quick example of what the end piece will look like. But the question is how do I make the image and text posts for Instagram without actually doing anything? So if the end post, this would be one that I've made, right? So it has a brand name, has an image, and it has text. And then it has a caption. And so all this will be on a channel that won't have video. I'm going to have a different one for clips. So this would be another satellite channel. But what it does is it looks at an RSS feed. It pulls the articles from that RSS feed, which is bundled by the keyword ChatGPT, prompt, and AI news. It classifies the news that's coming in. So it acts as an editor to pick which pieces make sense for what we want to do. We want to have pieces that aren't about celebrities or non event, like basically just like filler news. So it's given 15 stories, it picks the best three. Then it stores those article URLs because we need those later. Then it iterates through the list of the three. It passes it off to Firecrawl, which is for optimizing LLM readability. It'll go and read the sites because we need to actually get the articles. The RSS doesn't do that. It gives us headlines, images, descriptions, URLs. So then we go through and we scrape those, and it takes any of the garbage out and it optimizes for readability for an LLM, which we'll use to write the articles. Then we'll iterate through those markdown files that we've gotten from Firecrawl. We'll do an article summary because we need that for a caption. We'll store the summary back to the associated URL. Then we'll generate an image. And then we'll update the whole thing. So we'll end up with a spreadsheet full of posts. So if you have 3 of them being written every 15 minutes, then what? You get 12 an hour. You get 24 hours in a day, 288 times 365. You end up with 105,000 posts. So I'm going to run this for a couple days just to see, but that's kind of wild. You had 105,000 across a year, then it's really on you to understand how to make the best classification, how to make the best summaries, and how to make the best images. And you would likely do this same process when you bring on someone to make custom art or maybe a content assistant. You'd use the base of this. This is fully automated. I think it would perform better if it was like 75% and the other 25% is bringing it home. Really good content strategist. But those are the things that are possible. And I think it's just wild. So I had a piece of fuzz on my chin the whole time. Hope you guys didn't notice that. I'm also Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But I hope this is really helpful. I'm going to be working more on this today and putting out more content. I'm also building automation for Upwork for clients, doing client outreach, because I'm trying to work my way up. It's similar to YouTube where it's like, at first you have no one and it's just like sets and reps and you have no reputation. And then as you continue to show up, you build a rep on there and then you get to the top. I'll be building one of those out. And I think the title of this video will be about Cursor and its memory bank. So there's going to be a bank right here. This is for the thumbnail. Give me some sort of bank. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and like and subscribe, obviously. Do all the YouTube stuff. Leave a comment. Ask me a question so I can answer it. See ya.